Welcome back, fight fans. We're here for yet another week of Shootin' the Shit podcast here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, as well as Combat Press and MMA Intel, and everywhere this show is carried. I'm your host, as usual, Riley Contact here. We have yet another wonderful guest on our show. We have a fight week show, so this will be more of a fight interview as opposed to a freestyle talk about whatever comes to our mind. But before we introduce her, would like to give a shout out to our sponsor as normal. Like we said, we have a large following on this show. It comes from Illinois. So if you are in Illinois, head over to Facebook.com. If you have any home construction needs, look up Cornelius & Sons on Facebook. It's starting to get colder out here, so he's probably not going to do your deck or your front porch. But if you have anything, kitchen, plumbing, bathrooms, anything like that, again, head to Facebook.com and check out Cornelius & Sons. All right, so like I said, we have another great guest on this show. It is Invicta Fight Week, Invicta 43 coming up in Kansas City. We have one of the young up-and-coming fighters on that card. We have Meaghan, did I get that right? Meaghan Penning on the show today. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Riley?
I'm doing very well. You look comfortable. We'll say that.
Yes. I just got out of Muay Thai training and rushed back here to get a quick shower and meet up with you.
Perfect. This will be the first time someone did the Julius Caesar Emperor of Rome pose while they do the show.
How do people usually say?
Most of the time, surprisingly, we have a lot of people in cars. So, like Johnny Case was last week; he was in a car. Haley Cowan was in a car. But yeah, no, we have people in a wide range of sitting positions. So, but this is the first lay down we've had.
Fancy! I even set up a little light for you, so you can all see my face. Yeah, I put some thought into this pose, so I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, so that'll lead into our first topic, being that obviously, part of being a fighter is, being an entertainer, being, a promoter, self-promotion. So, first things first, just from looking at your social media, it looks like you're kind of into the whole modeling game. You really market yourself as a fighter. So how important is that aspect of the fight game to you? And do you think it'll help you going forward, as you start taking more fights? Do you think that aspect of marketing yourself is important to getting in the big leagues?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for fighters, out of all fighters that are in the UFC right now, I think one of the things that's not done as much as it should be. I mean, when you look at Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor, those are household names to people who don't even know MMA and don't follow the MMA game. And so it's I think that us as fighters, it's important that we start trying to create this star power and be these characters and these people that regular people can engage with, and it'll get more people interested in the sport and interested in what we do. So that's kind of my goal with the Instagram and with doing interviews and any kind of publicity and all that. But I was a business marketing major in college, so I probably have a different perspective than a lot of people.
For sure. Now, and you were grew up in Michigan, correct?
Yep.
So did you go to college in Michigan, or did you go out of state?
Yeah, so I went to a small private university in Michigan, mid-Michigan, called Northwood University. And so I got my bachelor's in marketing advertising there. Then I use it. I kind of floated around. I tried working at Sherwin-Williams for about a year, the paint store, and that wasn't really for me. Didn't really like managing. So then I substitute taught for a little bit, and then I found MMA, and ever since then, that's where I've been.
Perfect. And then that kind of brought us into that, and we'll go back to the Instagram thing in a second. So how long have you been doing martial arts, and was there a specific art you got in before you got into mixed martial arts?
So I started in MMA, but I gravitated towards jiu-jitsu right away. I went to a school that taught jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and it was supposed to be an MMA school that had some fighters, a small area in Michigan. And I really liked jiu-jitsu, which is funny because I'd actually taken jiu-jitsu in college maybe 2 years before, and I hated it. And so it was funny because I really hated it. I had no idea what was going on. They're throwing around terms like Americana, and I have no idea when we're I don't even know, I'm why are we doing this? What is this supposed to do? And how is this not I was thinking I was taking a karate class. Mm-hmm. So I get into this and we're all just on the ground with each other. And I'm just well, this guy that I'm partnered with, he's kind of cute. So I guess it's not a total waste of time. But yeah, I didn't get what was going on at all. And then a couple years later, I started training at this MMA gym, and I really started to love jujitsu. So maybe like having had the exposure, I kind of now knew what the point was. Like it's similar to wrestling, but it's not wrestling. Like anytime I explain it to people, they're like, "Oh, like wrestling," and I'm like, "Ah, but don't say that," because like my dad used when I was young, he'd be like, "Yeah, wrestling's just like sweaty men, just like rolling around on the ground with each other," and he basically made it seem like super gay, and I'm just like, that's like what I do, and that's like my main art, and I love it. And so it's just like so funny how perspectives change. But yeah, so jujitsu, I got into that, and then I competed in the jujitsu circuit in Michigan for a while, and was really successful with that. Won a lot of golds and in no-gi and gi in the Michigan circuit, and it made me kind of want more. I was like, well, how would I do if this were a more like a real fight? Like if people can punch me, how would I do? So I took my first cage fight just with that kind of goal. Like I just want a self-defense perspective. I kind of want to see how my skill sets are compared to other people that are doing the same thing I am. And then from there, it ended up being I decided that actually that's what I want to do all the time. Like I like it enough. I love training. So it's like, why not just take this all the way and make it my career what I love?
For sure, for sure. And that's funny. You're just like, my training partner, he's cute. Yeah, my training partner is cute as well. His name is Steve. But no, I'm kidding. But yeah, so no, that's interesting. You got into that, and I think it's kind of funny. You said you got into MMA. You kind of just started doing MMA. You didn't really start in a specific sport, because I feel like a lot of women in mixed martial arts started from a singular sport and then expanded. Like a lot of women started Muay Thai and then they expand their way out. So it's kind of interesting to see someone just jump right into the MMA mold.
For sure. And so in Michigan, like the area I was in was like mid west or mid east Michigan. And it's like Farmville there, so there's a lot there. So our art that school that I started at was Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
And I thought I'd like Muay Thai, and then I ended up really liking Jiu-Jitsu. And then when I moved down to Flint and was training there, also Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. But I really didn't feel like I understood what was going on with striking like at all until I kind of moved down here and had a more boxing perspective. And so I think it's kind of just what you gravitate towards. I think that like with the jujitsu, I really kind of got the flow and the way that I kind of learned athleticism and the way the body moves, like that perspective kind of fit me better. And I think it's because I'm more of a thinker. I've never been an athletic person. Like in high school, I didn't do a lot of sports. I was never super sporty. I've always been more of like a academic type. So I think jujitsu kind of grabbed me. And then as I built my athleticism, I really found myself more drawn to like boxing and wrestling and more of the traditional arts. So I think I always tell people if you're looking to get into MMA or you're looking to train self-defense, go to a few different gyms and try a few different martial arts because everyone's different. And I really do think there's something for everyone out there. And I think that to just have something in any of those arts builds so much confidence, and there's so many health benefits. And so jiu-jitsu the way I like jiu-jitsu, and not every single person's going to like Muay Thai, the way some girls do. And it's funny because now I do more Muay Thai, but when I started, it went right over my head.
For sure, yeah, and I agree with you. I went to the gym thinking I was going to be more just into boxing, and I'm way more into Muay Thai, and that's of course how I got hurt. But I definitely agree with you. You should try things out. Now you were saying that you got into jiu-jitsu because you're more of a thinker. Which is interesting. Now I wanted to go back to the Instagram thing because I talk about marketing as a fighter. So one of the questions I ask a lot of the ladies on the show is, do you condone the sex sells aspect of being a fighter as marketing yourself? And obviously, if you look at your Instagram, which I check out most social media platforms before I talk to people, a lot of risque photos. So obviously, that's part of what you think. So, do you do modeling on the side as like a profession? Is it more of a hobby, or is it more of a promotional tactic for yourself? Uh-oh.
I've always liked taking pictures, and I was in music before I was in MMA, and in music you do a lot of photo shoots and all that also. But for me, so I recently, this was like a big soapbox topic for me recently, where someone, what did they comment? It was something super obnoxious, and it was like, oh yeah, it was something like showing your ass for likes or something like that. And I got annoyed because it was like a yoga studio that posted it. And it was like out of Virginia Beach or something. So obviously I don't know this studio. I don't even know if it's a real place, but I looked them up on Facebook. I'm like, this is a real freaking yoga studio. Like someone who actually owns this thinks it's appropriate to go on girls' pages and like shame them for posting sexy photos. So like I posted in my story and I get really irritated because I'm basically like, I don't understand why this is a difficult concept for and it's not, most people I think don't have this problem, but I think there's this weird group of people on the internet that don't understand the concept of like, I can enjoy being sexy and still want to be smart and still want to fight people and still want to like do things that have nothing to do with being sexy. But I can also genuinely just want to be sexy. Like I don't have to be sexy just to promote myself. I can do that just because like that's how I am. Like I've always had this saying, like since I started my Instagram, like I would get annoyed if like someone I knew, like, and I think they're like, why are you doing it just for the gram? This hashtag do it for the gram thing, and it's like, but it's like, that's my personality. Like I just like taking pictures of my butt and on the, like, and that's okay. Like it's a free country, but I think, but it's for promotion. Like I do like that aspect, like it is that too. But my point is that it it doesn't have to be, and not every single picture I post is like, ooh, if I post this picture this way, then I'm going to get this many followers in this. It's to some degree, it's who I am, but to another degree, it's like I'm promoting who I am. My brand should be as authentic, and I think anyone who's trying to brand themselves or be a fighter or be a musician or whatever it is, like you should really kind of know who you are and what it is that people like about you. And if you know those things, then just by being that person, and your photo shoots are kind of geared around that, your verbiage is kind of geared around that. That's all it is when you talk about marketing and branding, is just being who you are to the best of your ability.
For sure, and I've tried to do that with this show, model myself. It hasn't worked out quite as good. Is thumbs down a bad thing on social media?
I mean, don't they say no publicity is bad publicity? So,
well, if you've seen the ratings on this show, I don't know if. But anyway, so I mean, we're talking to a fighter, so let's talk fights now. Obviously you have a fight coming up against Alexa Culp. If I'm not mistaken, it was a fight that was kind of done at last minute because they've been kind of doing everything on a shoestring because of just the current situation we're in. So, in taking a look at this fight you have coming up against Alexa, just comment on her as an opponent, and then just how you don't have to give me your strategy, but how do you see this fight going in your favor?
So, when I first saw her and like realized who it was, I was like, oh, I remember that fight. I saw her debut. And I remembered her, and I remember thinking like, wow, that girl's really cute. Like, and she's really similar to me. Like, so like the way, from her fighting style to the way that she markets herself, she comes out smiling. She's excited to be there. She doesn't quit. So like, honestly, like we have a lot of similar strengths. I think when you look at her fights and you look at my fights, there's a lot of similarities. But yeah, so I'm like, I am really excited to fight her. It'll be interesting to see. She's coming down from 125. All of her past fights have been there, and I've been 115 for a minute now. I've never been above 115. I'm short. I wouldn't want to go above that. But yeah, I obviously when you take, I mean, I shouldn't say obviously. I guess some fighters take fights that maybe they think they won't win, but I feel like most people, when you take a fight, like you're pretty confident that you have a chance at winning it. For each of my fights, I've always had like a fight dream, except for the one fight that I lost. I did not have a full-on fight dream, and but it didn't make me. I don't believe in voodoo, so like at the time. But as an aside, I did not have a fight dream for that one. But for every other fight I've had that I've won, I've always had a fight dream, and I've got full play-by-play of how the fight's going to go. And it doesn't always go exactly how it does in the dream, but I had a play-by-play of this fight, and I won. And every time I win in the dream, I win in there. So if I were superstitious, I'm going to go off for that. But no, I've got a really good game plan. I try not to talk too much about my fight. because I am an analytical person, and I could definitely give you like, well, this is our strategy, and this is what we're going to do, and and it's a terrible idea. You don't want
No,
to.
absolutely not. We never tell fighters to give away their strategy on the show, but we more or less just want to know what you think of the opponent. And yeah, I think this is a good prospect fight for sure. This was one that when it got announced, if you're a nerd like me, you're like, oh yeah, let's write about this one. So really looking forward to that. Now, in terms of this, this is obviously your first pro fight. It's under the bright lights of Invicta. Do you think that being in a big stage like this is going to affect you in terms of pressure?
Honestly, no. This has always been the goal. This was my hope, was that my pro debut would be with Invicta, and here we are. So it's really exciting in that aspect. This time a year ago, October of last year, before COVID was a thing, before anyone knew about it, I got to fight over in China, and it was huge. Like it was so cool to be a part of that event, because it's not a promotion anyone's heard of. It was called Beijing Combat. They'd had maybe 3 shows. It was maybe an hour outside of Beijing, in this nice little area kind of halfway between Beijing and the Great Wall of China. And this show, for being like a promotion that, in the States, we've never heard of it. We've never, it was so well done, and it was giant, and they had like the ring girls were wearing like these little race car girl outfits, and they each had a different color. There was like 6 ring girls. They were all like super tall models, and it was like a huge crowd, and like after, everyone wanted to take pictures with me, and it was really really fun. And even like some of the King of the Cage events, less so, because a lot of times at the King of the Cage events I brought my crowd, so I knew everybody. I feel like I've been to some pretty big events as far as crowds, and it is going to be interesting to see how it affects me to not have the crowd, because I'm actually, think, the type of person who thrives on the pressure, who thrives on the spotlight. Before I was in MMA, so growing up, I wanted to have a career in music and acting. So from age, like, I don't know, 13 to 17, I was going between Nashville and Detroit, and like doing all these things to try and make music, work with different people, do shows in cafes and bars and things like that. And so I've always been really comfortable there. I think it's one of my strengths as a fighter. So it will be interesting to see without that, if I still feel as like into it and excited. Honestly, I think it will help me more than hurt me, because I think that as much as I love the spotlight, there's still that like nerves element you get from like a giant group of people, and like you won't. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry.
Yo, you're good. Go ahead.
I may need to plug my phone in though. Give me
Oh,
just
okay,
one.
go for it.
Right here. I did not realize I was low.
No worries. I can sing while we wait, just to make sure there's no dead air. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, I may have to change my angle.
That's all right. I'm keeping this in. This is going to make this the most authentic podcast. I'm keeping all this in, mostly because I'm lazy and don't like editing. But
now we get an even more reclined pose.
There you go.
But yeah, so basically, I think if anything, the lack of people there will be interesting to see. But I think it will actually kind of help me be a little bit more calm, because I think I'm used to putting on this stage persona, and I think for fighting it actually helps to be more like calm, in your zone, like not think of it as a performance, just going in there, doing what you practice, doing what you do best. And that's honestly, I think, the best way to be exciting. I think if you go in with this idea of, I'm going to go perform for people and put on a show, and I mean, it's a fight, like you can't really act and put on an act when you're in a fight. I mean, but there's fighters who do it, but do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's better to be calm. So I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and that's the opposite. Like, in terms of sports in general, whether it's whatever I'm doing, I'm always super hyped going into things. So I probably would be the opposite, where I'm feeding off crowd energy and can't be calm. But totally understand that, because all athletes are different. But so now let's take a look at the Invicta card itself that you're going to be on. Let's look at the top 2 fights, and maybe a quick breakdown and a prediction of those 2, and then we'll take a look at the UFC card on Saturday, and then we'll get you out of here. So the co-main event was really the biggest announcement. Was Kayla Harrison is going to be borrowed over from PFL. She is going to be taking on Courtney King. So what do you think about this fight, and do you have a prediction?
So I'm gonna go with the judo girl. Just I have seen. I feel like I've actually seen both of them fight before, but I haven't pulled up the fights yet. Honestly, since this has been announced, I've been so entrenched in camp, getting things together. Because usually I like to research. Like I like to know, like, oh, this girl did this, and she's, I even I think being a part of an event, it's kind of harder to do that. Like normally when the Invicta cards come out, I'm always researching ahead of time, like, oh yeah, I remember this girl from this, and I'll go and watch all the previous fights and kind of have my own ideas before I see it. But being on the card, I think I've kind of pulled away from that a little bit just because like I don't want to be, invested in this fight when I have to focus on my fight. But just off of it, I'm gonna go with the judo girl. My best friend Tainite, she's a big judo player. Um, and I saw this other girl, Peta, in
Paulie Macias, yep.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the judo style really does throw your more conventional fighters for a loop unless they have a lot of exposure to someone who does a lot of judo. So especially at a high level, it's just it's like a different ball game. So I'm gonna take Kayla on that one.
Well, hilariously enough, Macias fights on Tuesday for the Dana White's Contender Series.
And oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Tuesday she's fight. Her fight was supposed to be not the one that happened Tuesday, but the previous Tuesday. It got moved back because of COVID. So she's fighting Tuesday against Gloria DePaula. So then you're in it, and then Kayla Harrison, obviously. I think everyone's taking Kayla Harrison. PFL is not going to let her fight somebody that's going to have her lose going into the upcoming 2021 season. So absolutely. Now, the title fight at the top of the card, do you have a comment on that? Emily Ducati versus Montserrat Ruiz?
So I really want to go with I think Montserrat Ruiz is going to take that one. I think her boxing's super sharp. Unless I'm not mixing her up, right? She's the boxer, right? She's like a really good boxer.
I think she has boxing. If I'm not mistaken, she has a wrestling background.
Her last
win was a submission. I think it was an arm lock. Give me a second. I'll pull that up.
Okay. Maybe, you know what? Because I realized I was mixing her up with another girl. And so then I was like, wait, do I even know who this girl is? I thought she was the boxer. But Emily Ducati, like, I like her fights. I've seen a few of hers, and I've always enjoyed watching her fight. I feel like she's a little more well-rounded. But now I'm thinking I've actually mixed up Montserrat Ruiz with the girl who just fought. So honestly, I don't know. Well, yeah, I thought I knew about this fight, and then when I looked it up, I was like, actually, you are you're in your head. You're thinking you're thinking of someone else. Mm-hmm. I thought that she was the other 115 girl who's a boxer.
Yeah, so Montserrat Ruiz, I'm pretty sure she has a wrestling background. Her fight that got her the title fight, she won with a key lock from a scarf hold position against Janaisa Morandin. So as far as I know, she has a wrestling background, and most of her wins, I believe, are by submission. But I mean, a lot of Mexican fighters do have good boxing, so I mean, you're probably not wrong in that regard. So.
All right, because yeah, I think I'm mixing her up with the other girl Invicta has, who's like a really good boxer that just fought recently. So, in that case, I don't know much about it. Who do you have?
I have Ducati, not just because she's been on the show before, but I mean, she's fought for a title twice. She fought for the Bellator title up a weight class against Ilma McFarlane. Obviously, she lost that. And then she had that really close split decision loss for the Invicta title against Kanako Murata. Arguably, a lot of people said she could have won that. I think third time's a charm. I think she comes out with the victory here. I think she has more tools. I think she can counter wrestle, and I think she has really good boxing herself. So I will take Emily Ducati in that one.
Who has the belt right now?
It is vacant. Kanako Murata had the belts. She won it against Ducati. She vacated to go to the UFC, and if I'm not mistaken, she's fighting this weekend too. I'm not going to look it up. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, so do we have enough knowledge to talk about the two UFC main events for the pay-per-view, the UFC 255?
The day after my fight, or is that this weekend?
Yes, the day after your fight.
The only thing I know about that card is my teammate Tim is fighting on it.
Yes, yeah, Tim Meaghan's getting a late notice fight. Yep.
I do know a lot more about the UFC one, so if you tell me the headliners, I might have a better prediction.
Absolutely.
I really have to spend like way in camp for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, of course. So 2 title fights, the women's flyweight title, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia.
I didn't realize that. Oh my God.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have any comment on that fight and possible prediction?
Shevchenko is gonna take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Maya. I'm a fan of hers. I think it'll be interesting to see how that division continues to grow. But at this point, I think Shevchenko is just she's so I heard it best described. One of my coaches describes it where he says, with the women's divisions, you have like this top 1%, and there's not that many women fighters, so the top 1% is usually 1 to 3 women, and then you've got the 9% below them that can compete with each other but can't compete with the top 1%. And I think the 125-pound division still being so new, Shevchenko really is the only top 1% that we've seen so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing that change. It would be really interesting to see someone that I think has a chance with her, but I don't think Maya's the one.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if she makes weight because I'm pretty sure Maya's missed weight in 2 of her last 3 fights. So they're really luckily it's the co-main event, so it can't get screwed up. Well, I mean it can get screwed up, but it can't get too screwed up if Maya loses on the scale. But the main event, and if you don't know anything about it, I'll just do a quick breakdown. It's the flyweight title. Davison Figueroa, I believe he's taking on Alex Perez now. Yeah, Alex Perez. So interesting that that's in the main event slot. I probably would have had Shevchenko over that fight. But do you have any comment on that one?
Honestly, no. I know that I've seen both of them fight before, but I don't even remember who it was or what they did. So tell me what I should know.
No worries. I actually think this is a lot closer of a fight than people are giving it credit for. I think Figueroa has been outstanding, obviously beating Benavidez and all those guys. So I'm going to take Figueroa here, but I think Perez is. If you're a betting person, you bet on underdogs. I think betting on Perez, putting a few shekels on him, maybe not be a bad idea because he's very underrated. So I will say the champion retains here. But it'll be a closer fight than people think.
So Figueroa is the current champ of the flyweight.
Yes. Yeah.
Who did he fight?
He beat Benavidez, and then they were saying it was off of that accidental headbutt, so they rematched right away, and he beat him again. So he's on a 4-fight winning streak, and 2 of them are 2 in a row against over Benavidez.
Okay. Huh. Well, that'll be. I think that card overall. I remembered looking up that card when I saw, because I was excited about that Shevchenko Maya, and I think overall that card will be a fun one.
It'll be interesting for sure. And then
I'm hoping I get
sister.
to see it. Hoping I get to see it because we fly. They only had like afternoon flights out of Kansas City, and I even like looked it up online to see if we could like move it around, and actually like they just don't even have flights coming out of Kansas City before like 3 p.m. So for whatever reason. And so I don't know if they're all sold out or whatever, but I'm hoping I'll be able to get some Wi-Fi in the plane and watch it because my teammate Tim's fighting on it. And my coach Arlene was like, keep checking, like maybe we can get back sooner, like because she's going to be with me, so she's not cornering him for this one. So of course she wants to know, be watching. So
yeah, and I don't see why. I mean, geez, the pay-per-views start like at 10 Eastern. So I mean, by the time Tim gets on the card, it'll probably be like 11:30 Eastern time, so you should probably have enough time at least to see him.
I'm hoping so. I think we literally land about that time. We land at like 9 o'clock or 9:30 Mountain Time, which is like 11:30 Eastern Time. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
For sure, yeah, and that's I think, like I said, it should be a good card. It's not as stacked as most pay-per-view cards, but those are usually the ones that deliver on action. So hopefully that stays true there. So, all right, Meaghan, why don't we give you the floor right now? You can plug yourself. I always tell people, whore yourself out. Where can we find you? Anybody you'd like to thank? The floor is yours.
Awesome. So please find me on my Instagram at Meaghan Penning, spelled MEAGHAN Penning. It's like writing, but with a pen, PENNING. Check it out. I've been doing a lot of cool stuff with the page, putting a lot of time into it, and I've been getting awesome response from it. So enjoy that. I have not gotten the YouTube thing together yet, so nothing to plug there. Instagram has been where all my time has been. So if you don't have an Instagram, get an Instagram. Check it out. Big thank you to my coaches. Big thank you to, I guess I really don't have any sponsors to thank for this one. It came together so quickly. That will definitely change. But if you are someone looking to sponsor me, please hit me up. on Instagram or on Facebook Messenger. That's actually a little bit easier to get a hold of me on. The DMs have been blowing up on Instagram lately, but I will find you if you're messaging me, offering me money. I go through all of them at least once every 5 days. So just, send some kind of like stop sign or something to get my attention, and a money sign. And I will respond to you and would appreciate any support.
Oh, well, now you just gave all the creeps the way to read their messages. They're going to just start with a money sign.
Stop sign, money sign. No, really though. Like if you send me money on PayPal, right away I will find you on the gram and figure out a way to thank you. Like it's every time it's worked.
Perfect. I will now whore myself out, and then we'll get you out of here. You know my normal routine. Twitter, Facebook is where I post these episodes and a bunch of other random thoughts that usually people don't appreciate because I'm a horrible, horrible person. In terms of this podcast, you can find it on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, Soundcast, Apple, all that good stuff. Big shout out to Keith Schillen. Where else are we here? Combat Press. Big thanks to Rob Tatum and Brian Henderson. They post the show. I do the women's rankings as well for that website, Contender Series previews, all that good stuff. And then, of course, my crappy little website, MMA Intel. Check that out. We have scouting reports every week, rankings, all the good stuff. And we post these episodes there as well. So that's pretty much it for it tonight. So, again, Meaghan, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. So for Meaghan Penny, I am Riley Context saying continue to watch the fights, continue watching the show. Go fuck yourselves. Good night.